All right, today is August the 12th in 2025, and my guest is Bryan Caplan, who needs no introduction, repeat guest on this show, economist at George Mason University, author of many great books, and at that point also a gaming buddy, right? I was visiting you, Bryan, at
Karaoke.
CaplaCon last year, yeah, karaoke. And you also visited us at Prospera, and we were playing a lot of werewolves there.
Excelente y fantastico. Prospera es excelente y fantastico.
Exactly. And today we're here to talk about your new book, Pro Market and Pro Business. Welcome back on the show.
Fantastic to be here, Niklas.
Fantastic. So before we get to the book, how was CaplaCon this year? Did you get to play your self-created D&D adventures again?
That's right. Yeah. So I did two big role-playing games. I did one that was a pulp era 1921 game, which is totally new. So like about some orphans at Stanford University who have an adventure in South America, a la Indiana Jones. And then the other one was an old time one, The Deliverance of Masada, where you play, or one person plays a Old Testament prophet, and it interacts with actual history because you wind up going and saving the martyrs of Masada. So it's faction where you change the actual facts of history, but it built upon history.
Nice. The one we played last time was the one with the group of terrorists and the people that are out of the asylum.
Yes.
With this,
overstep the limits. You play mental patients versus terrorists. I like that one.
exactly. It took 14 hours. You really take no shortcuts. It takes as long as it takes.
Oh, that was a shortcut.
That was shorter than usual. Amazing.
All right.
Anyway, so Bryan, you're in the most productive period of your career, right? You're making lots of books. What are your remaining life or work goals, and in what order are you working on them? And what role does your current book play in it?
Right. So, Pro Market and Pro Business is the seventh in a series of 8 collections of essays. Basically, I had about 20 years worth of blog posts, and I thought that a lot of them stood the test of time. And I wanted to collect them into books. I knew some other people who had done this and it worked out well for them. So I wanted to try it, and almost done with that project, actually. I just have one more book in the series to go. I've got 2 follow-up volumes to tack on to the original 8. Then in terms of bigger projects, so I'm wrapping up my big book about markets and government. It's called Unbeatable, The Brutally Honest Case for Free Markets. This is my version of capitalism freedom, or free to choose. It's one where I am stepping back and just trying to say something really new about markets versus governments. And real quick version, it says markets do the good things that sound bad, governments do the bad things that sound good. And I say this isn't just why people underrate markets and overrate government. It's also why it's so hard rhetorically to make the case for markets, which is that the most intellectually cogent arguments make enemies. Just one simple example. You can't put a price on safety, can you, Niklas?
No, safety is like the most important thing.
Right.
It is
All right.
priceless.
Now, if you talk to virtually any economist and say, is that literally true? Doesn't matter how left-wing they are. Say, okay, that's ridiculous. If it was like $1 billion to increase safety by 0.001%, then you shouldn't do it. Right. And yet, this kind of reasoning is, to state it publicly, is political suicide. And I say that if you look at actual government policy, while they can't go as far as that because it would just lead to total destruction, nevertheless, there really are a lot of government policies that are based upon pursuing safety at virtually any cost. So nuclear power is one prominent example where, in order to get rid of minuscule risks, governments have basically destroyed this entire industry. Right? And to the point where it's like, wouldn't it be safer to have less safety regulation in nuclear because people then use coal or whatever instead? But even that kind of argument is very hard to get through to people. Or, of course, during COVID, if it saves one life argument. It's like, well, wouldn't that mean no one should ever get to do recreational driving? Right? So that's an example of, markets do the good thing that sounds bad, which is make a trade-off and say, yeah, the safety is not an absolute priority. You've got to trade off safety for other good things in life. And governments do the bad things that sound good, which is say, no, safety, absolute priority. We're not going to allow any risk taking.
Yeah, so during COVID or airport regulations, well, the convenience, everyone has to be burdened to save a few lives, right? So you can't go out there and say, well, convenience is also important, right?
Yes.
So
Yeah, I
that's,
mean, the U.S. Just recently did have the miracle of reversing the regulation or removing your shoes.
oh, that happened.
Yes, so that actually happened, and I've been to airports, and it's really going on now. So you no longer have to remove your shoes, all based upon one guy who failed to blow up a plane almost 25 years ago. But I'll still say exception that proves the rule.
Yeah, and what happens
This
then?
is
Like, is
courts.
anyone
We
at,
got rid of a stupid thing after 25 years.
yeah,
It's okay. We still
and
have
is
1,000 other stupid things, but we got that one.
yeah, and is anyone admitting, like, why did we do that before? Right?
Yeah,
What-
I mean, I have a piece on that, on the theme of how come when governments go and stop doing something stupid, there's no apology. The previous one is when they said you're allowed to go and use your phone during takeoff and landing, all based upon nothing, just fear mongering. And who knows, maybe a cell phone could cause a plane crash. And when they got rid of it, then it was just like, we're now doing this. And also, don't ask too many questions about why, but trust us. No mistakes were ever made. We were right before and we're right now. And on the one hand, it's like, well, if you really make government go and you sweat them and say, well, can't we get an apology for all these years of screwing up? They might just stick to their guns and never change. But on the other hand, it is like, well, so could you explain what you learned exactly that changed your mind? Like, the government does not have to explain what it learned. The government just decides what is best. Shut up.
So markets are the inverse, right? So markets are good at producing the things that sound bad but are good,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
So
Yep. Exactly.
yeah.
Right. And like I say in the book, there's a whole lot of products that people enjoy and use, but almost no one wants to give a speech defending. So, like alcohol, who wants to give a speech of like, as a proud consumer of alcohol? And yet, obviously, most people really enjoy alcohol. And you say, but aren't there some downsides? Yes, of course, duh. But the point being that there are endless messages about the horrors of alcohol, but almost never is there a pro alcohol speech. Markets keep selling it to people because they like it. And if you go to a typical user of alcohol and you don't say, but don't you understand that alcohol has some negative effects? Like, yeah, I know that. Shut up. I mean, or imagine if every time you bought alcohol, you had to go and give a speech saying, look, I am fully aware of the risks, but I prefer to go and purchase anyway. I think a lot of people wouldn't feel like going to that store. And so, like, what people in running businesses do is they just very diplomatically sell them what they want without judging them, without making them feel bad, and often actually making them feel happy about what they're doing with just aesthetics. Right. So in the book, I mentioned the current Mercedes slogan. Do you know it, Niklas?
No,
The best or nothing.
the
Something
best
like
or
that
not.
is it, like the best oder nichts.
It's best oder nichts, yeah.
Right. And it's like, well, what does that mean exactly? But anyway, it's the kind of slogan where someone who would be embarrassed to say, yes, in a world of poverty and suffering, I choose to go and spend $100,000 on a high performance automobile. But people want this stuff, and markets go and actually make you feel good about yourself while you're living a normal human existence. And like you say, like, your markets let humans be human. They don't go and hold people up to unreasonably high standards and then make them feel guilty for just breathing, which, of course, a lot of other
Yeah,
organizations in the world do try to make people feel guilty just for breathing.
yeah. Now you're saying pro business and pro market, right? So these two aren't the same thing, right? Or there's like a long-standing tradition, I think, including Adam Smith or even Milton Friedman
Yes,
himself,
yes.
to like go to say, okay, we're pro market, but we're not pro business. These are different things. So where's that coming from, and what do you say against that?
Yeah, exactly. So, especially among economists, many economists who are very pro market are at pains to say this does not mean I am pro business at all. Like, I recognize that they're selfish and greedy and will take advantage if they have a chance. It's competition that goes and keeps them in line and makes them behave. And so, don't think that I'm someone so stupid as to believe that businessmen themselves are good people. This is partly to counter all of the centuries of libel and slander from socialists saying that anyone who likes markets is just a capitalist running dog or a slave of the bourgeoisie. But It is something, this slogan of I'm pro market, but not pro business. It's one where it's like, okay, look, I think I understand what you're getting at. And I'd also say that part of it in the last 60 years is for pro market people to say, I'm not one of those crazy fans of Ayn Rand. Because, Ayn Rand, novelist, really does have novels where businessmen are just like fantastic human beings in every imaginable way. And it's like, look, I'm not like one of these crazy Randians. Like, I recognize all of the problems with business. I don't think that the selfishness is good in itself, only when it's tempered by competition and so on. But what I say in that essay is, look, let's just seek truth from facts and just start with some basic ideas of, suppose that you had to go and either trust a random stranger or a business. Which would you rather do?
Yeah, people trust businesses.
Yeah, like if you got a problem, would you rather go to a well-known business or just some random stranger? It's like,
yeah,
almost everybody. It doesn't matter how left-wing you are, when you are trying to figure out how to get good treatment from someone, first thing is, I'll go to a business. And even when you're not a repeat customer, even when it is unlikely based on the circumstances that you're going to be a repeat customer, even then, the normal thing is just to go and say, I'll go to a business. And it's like, that's kind of interesting anyway. And just suggest some good things about businesses, right? So starting there. And then when you also just think about what you need for success in business, there is this idea of you just go and rip off your customers and that's going to work well. But then you say, well, does that describe any of the successful businesses that I know? And it's like, right. So actually, so in the book that I'm writing, I mean, I do talk a lot about economic research, but usually I just lead with, all right, just tell me what you saw with your own eyes. It's not, this isn't ideology. It's not even research. It's just, what have you seen personally? So like almost every reader will have bought things from Amazon. Like, what are your experiences with Amazon? I guess down in Honduras, you can't get it, right? Or at least it doesn't work too well.
it's a bit harder. Yeah.
Yes, but in first world countries, people deal with Amazon, and you have these experiences that really sound too good to be true. Like, you get a product, it works as intended, but you just don't like it. So you go and return it and get all your money back. And in exchange, they get some an unusable open product that they can't sell again. And this doesn't just happen once. This is just a routine feature of being an Amazon customer. And it comes right to your door. It's super convenient. Or Costco. Yeah, you don't have Costco in Honduras either, right?
No.
But they do have what is actually Costco in Guatemala. They have Costco brand products. I think it has a different name, but it is Costco, right? So another incredibly successful business. You go there and it's like, super cheap prices, really high quality stuff. And just in terms of your feeling of, can I trust these people? How are they going? Like, what are they going to do to me here? Like, anyone with experience just has the sense of, these people are some of the best people I've ever dealt with, right? And then you say, okay, well, they're doing it to make money, but it's like, what a system where people want to make a lot of money are so focused on having this wonderful reputation, or even smaller businesses like Amazon Marketplace or eBay. If you've ever had a dispute with them, the level of responsiveness is really quite staggering, right? And it's like, well, why do they care so much? Well, they seem to be really concerned about getting one negative review. That I don't want to be 98% positive. I want to be 99% positive. And so we really do see this amazing kind of treatment that you get from business. And then, as I also mentioned, like something else that's really lovable about business, which is very low on the lectures, very low on going and talking down to you and condescending. Business normally just want to go and take you as you are and make you happy. Whereas, not just governments, but religions, schools, all these other organizations are there going and lecturing you and pointing fingers and judging you. And I say, look, I like business because business treats me the way that I would like to be treated.
I also like the payment experience, right? So when you have like a subscription with like a Netflix or an Amazon, there's typically pretty easy ways to opt out, and they like beg you before you leave. Hey, stay. We give you this 50% discount if you stay.
Yeah,
right?
Like there are a few services where if you aren't paying attention, you'll find that it's a little bit hard to get out, or you may have to talk to a customer service rep and be on the line for a long time. I think like my worst experience was with Hulu, where our Hulu account was hacked. And there's basically a catch-22 where the only way to get into the system was to have access to the account, which was hacked. And so we couldn't get in. And then finally, and then even going to the credit card company and saying there's been fraud and we don't want, and that didn't work. And we actually changed our account number through the Hulu hacking. And because Hulu was such a trusted vendor, they just went and gave them our new number, which we did not want. And then finally, my wife had to get on the phone and wait on hold for about an hour. So that is the worst scenario.
Yeah.
It wasn't happy with it, but compared to a dispute with the IRS, it was heaven.
I was about to say that. Compare that to, okay, you have to pay the government for their services.
Compared to virtually everything else, then everything else is awesome. I just dropped my series subscription after, like almost 25 years. And it was absurdly easy because now it's all done with a chat bot, and basically say, like, log in, I want to drop it. They offer you a great deal. I still want to drop it. They offer you an even better deal. And then you say, still want to drop, and then you're dropped. And that was it. I was done in 5 minutes. I couldn't believe how easy it was.
Yeah. So what is it that makes us, so there seems to be that we want people to do the good thing out of the goodness of their heart, not because it's in their self-interest, right? Is there some kind of like Robin Hanson type reason, or does it have to do something with the reason of why we hold NGOs in such high esteem?
Yeah. I mean, I think there is this plausible evolutionary story that in the ancestral environment, intentions were very important and unintended consequences just were not very important. And I think that we really are evolved to focus a lot on explicit intentions. But even that, I think, doesn't really cut it fully, because it's like, all right, like when you go and deal with businesses, they seem like they actually are more interested in your concerns than a normal person would be. I mean, just compare like a dispute you have with your cousin to a dispute you have with Costco. Like Costco, it's like, this is going to be solved very quickly, and it's to my satisfaction. Whereas like with your cousin, someone that you might have known all your life, if you're not happy with how your cousin's acting, he's getting drunk at family events, it's like, oh, I'll just go talk to my cousin and that will solve the problem. And it's like, it will? Like, you've got really great cousins. If one conversation goes and changes his behavior for the rest of his life, it's probably not. He's just going to be difficult and like argue with you. So it's not going to be this wonderful experience. And then like also like another thing to think about is like, if you just go through like a list of, well, so what kind of intentions do you want? Well, like, if businesses want to have a reputation for honesty, one good way to get it is actually to hire honest people. Right. And that can go too far, but still you can see how it might make a lot of sense for business people to go and hire honest people. It's like, well, yeah, they won't lie to consumers for us, or at least they'll be uncomfortable doing it. But I also trust them not to steal. I trust them not to go and shirk. So it might be a really good idea to go and hire a bunch of Mormons to work here who won't be comfortable with dishonesty towards anyone. And that can easily be a big net gain for businesses. Or again, just the virtue of impulse control, just considering future consequences. Have you ever, I'm guessing, Niklas, have you ever met a person who just didn't really think much about future consequences?
Once in a while, I meet people like that. Yes.
I'm just going to say, like, these are very aggravating people. And people say, oh, but they mean well. And it's like, do they? If they meant well, wouldn't they consider that they are causing long run harm to me? But you deal with businesses, and businesses normally seem to be quite concerned with long-run consequences because they're in it for the long haul. You don't get to be Costco or Amazon by just saying, how can we max out profit today?
Yeah. And I could go sing a whole like praise of business and continuing on that, right? So I think it's amazingly innovative, like the different kinds of businesses there are, and structures and organizational forms. The way corporate law has evolved to address these different kind of needs, create incentive for people to participate, right? Sort of reducing. There's also plenty of competition. Like it's easier than ever to start a business, right? With the technology that's available, with sort of the jurisdictional competition of like Delaware versus Estonia and things like that. But before we go there, I wanted to make sort of the strongest steelman that I could for, hey, what should we hold businesses to account, right? And that case is, so Reid Hoffman, the LinkedIn founder, once said that businesses that he knows can almost all be classified into capitalizing on the 7 deadly sins.
Okay.
Right? So lust, OnlyFans or online porn, gluttony, DoorDash and McDonald's and all of that.
Mm-hmm.
Envy, Instagram, sloth, Netflix, greed, Robinhood, crypto, pride, LinkedIn, wrath, media or Twitter and all of that. Right? So there is sort of we have businesses want to, they feed kind of on our unhealthy predispositions and give us unhealthy products and sick medicine and polarize us, make us obese and all of that. So doesn't that show that businesses under market conditions is sort of incentivized to sort of make us worse?
So like even taking that really negative description as total gospel, I would say that sounds more like a complaint about human nature than about business. It's just saying, look, human beings are broken. Their main motivations are these deadly sins, and businesses make money by catering to them. And you say, okay, but what if people were very different? Then how would you make money? Then, well, yeah, then of course you would make money by catering to their virtues instead. So I would just start there and saying, look, if every human being just wanted to consume really healthy food, then you'd make money by offering really healthy food. If every human being wanted to make money by making lots of, or like really wanted to have lots of good friendships, then businesses would be really focused on that. So to go and blame businesses for just satisfying existing preferences and then say the preferences are bad, it's like, well, why did you blame the businesses? It's just human beings. So why not just go and lash out at human nature? Is it possibly because businesses are easy scapegoats where if you just denounce human nature, you just sound like a scold or like a judgmental, arrogant jerk, putting yourself above other people? And I think that's a reasonable place to start. I'd also say, look, when businesses go and make food to say they're catering to gluttony, it's like they're catering to all people that want food. And that includes people that eat very reasonable amounts of food. It includes people that undereat. You might say yes, but they make a lot of their money on the overeaters. And it's like, all right, there's something to that. But keep this in mind that they are also doing something else. They are avoiding something else that would be objectionable, which is going and lecturing people and not minding their own business. So I think there's some virtue in not presuming to set yourself up as knowing better than other people about what to do with their own lives. You think about a lot of what businesses are doing is just controlling their own pride and just saying, yes, it's not for me to judge whether someone's ordering too much food. And if you're worried about that, then you should think about it. I mean, honestly, I'll say this is one of my favorite things about business is that, look, I do a lot of things that are unusual and that other people might even condemn. And one of the things I really like about businesses is I just give them my money and I do what I want and they don't talk back to me, which you could say is bad. I'm like, well, whether it's bad depends upon whether I'm wrong. I don't think I'm wrong, actually. So one of my most popular recent pieces is I just had a thing saying that I strive to only use disposable plates, cups, and utensils to save time. And honestly, this saves me probably 3 or 4 hours per week of drudgery of washing dishes. And I just go to Costco and I make cheap bulk purchases of all their incredible disposable products. And no one at Costco has ever asked me, why do you get so many disposable plates, Brian? These are only for picnics. Well, and I'm like, I have a different plan, and I think my plan is a good one. And I don't want to go and argue about it with the cashier.
And I would also add, you can almost always say the reverse, right? So for the unhealthy products, there is like free fitness courses that you could watch or use your entire day, right? There is all sorts of offerings catered to help you, sort of making personalized trainers more affordable, like all the gym memberships. And now there's things like Ozempic, right? So like the pharmaceutical industry and researchers are trying everything they can to like make it like no effort for you to be more healthy. Right? Then it becomes of a question of like agency, right? So, are you able to choose? And you almost certainly are able to choose when you have more things available and choices, right?
Yeah, I mean, humans love to put blame for bad human decisions on business and the rich. And there was an earlier time when it was easier to believe this, where, like in the 1980s when I was growing up, it's like, well, the poor people can't afford to read good literature. They're stuck watching television. All right. Even at the time, it's like, are there not libraries? Like, how much does a book really cost? But all right, fine. It's like the television's free, just turn it on, and books, you got to make some effort to get it. But then what happened with the internet is that like every work of classic literature became available for free, gratis pricing. And therefore we saw an explosion of Shakespeare reading, right, Niklas?
Of course.
Yes.
The first
It's like, look, when if everything is available gratis, then when people are consuming a lot more of low brow stuff and highbrow stuff, it no longer makes any sense to say the poor can't afford to have the highbrow stuff. And you're stuck with the obvious answer of most human beings don't like highbrow stuff. And it's nothing to do with they can't afford it. It's everything to do with they don't like it.
Yeah. And I want to go a bit further on the what is kind of the ethics of business, right? So because another thing that made me actually think about a lot, and I frequently discuss on this podcast, is the ethics of like regulation, right? And there is this old theory of regulatory capture, which is kind of insinuating that businesses go out there to get regulations to protect themselves, right? So against like smaller competitors. But there's a grain of truth in that, but it's also false, right? So business doesn't go proactively out there to seek regulations. It's more like you say, demagogic politicians in a situation like 9/11 or the thalidomide public health things, that then their hands are kind of forced, right? But the actual incentive is to, and I learned this from Sam Pelsman, the incentive is actually to keep things as they are, keep things peaceful, keep stability and order. So we don't have to use all our time lobbying to, and instead of work on the business and on the values for consumers.
Right. What I say is this is just so much more complex than most, even most regulatory economists have really thought about. So there is this category of businesses where basically they are totally dependent on the government and they would just go down in flames without the government. So if like your whole business is getting government subsidies, and there are some businesses like that, then of course, like you are constantly lobbying the government to go and get that help. And that's one reason businesses go and lobby the government. Another reason businesses lobby the government is just to be allowed to stay alive. So like, I have this book, Build Baby Build, on housing regulation. And here's the thing that I realized while writing that book. If it were not for businesses lobbying regulators, basically nothing would be built in the United States. Because the laws as written are almost a straitjacket for anything. And then what happens is, in the face of these crippling draconian regulations, businesses go to the government, they say, please make an exception, give us a variance, allow us to do this. And so as a result, some stuff gets built. A lot less than would be built in a free market, but still more than we built without that regulation. And I think a lot of lobbying really is just trying to go and get some breathing room to do their job. So there's that. Then there are, like this idea of specifically big businesses that are trying to crush the little guy. There's some of that. But if you pay attention to actual regulation, a lot of it only applies to larger businesses. There are a lot of regulations that only kick in when you have 5 or 15 or 50 employees. So like I talk to people, it's like there's a lot of ways in which the law actually favors small businesses over big businesses. And then the last reason why a lot of businesses want regulation is just because they'd rather deal with one standardized set of federal regulations than 50 sets of state regulations. And the compliance costs for 50 different sets of state regulation are so high that they will, in fact, lobby for federal regulation. That doesn't mean that they want regulation. It can it often will just mean that they would rather have no regulation, but they realize that's a hopeless, quixotic endeavor. So given the choice of 50 kinds of state regulation or one kind of federal, then as lesser evil, they choose federal. Thinking a lot about, Prospera, a subject dear to your heart, right, Niklas? So when you're there, like I can tell that you are really trying to leverage the special legal status of Prospera to get businesses that are doing high risk, high return strategies to locate there. Right. And this is, again, another thing that I think a lot of people would find out what you're doing. And I probably don't have to tell you, and think that you are horrible and evil. Right. So it's just like, you horrible people, you're trying to find a place where businesses can just take risks that no government on earth considers acceptable. And it's like, yes, well, maybe every government on earth is totally unreasonable in its risk analysis, and they're only focused on there being bad media stories. versus the fact that maybe we'll come up with a drug that saves 1 billion lives. So that is another good thing about business, is that they are at least willing to say, well, look, yes, there's a risk and we accept that, but there's also an enormous potential gain, and let's balance those. And one interesting thing here is that sometimes people get really angry at businesses for saying, look, this isn't that likely to work. So this is like when people are pressuring businesses to do more green energy, and the business is like, well, like this is all premised on batteries getting really good in the next 5 years, and that's only like 7% likely, so we don't want to do it. And this is where people say, just because it's 93% likely to fail, you won't do it, you horrible jerk. So that's one reaction to business, is they don't want to go and put a lot of money behind pipe dreams. And the other one is, all right, well, there's like 20% chance this leads to enormous gains, 5% chance there's some horrible media scandals about it, and they did it anyway. What a monster to go and value a 20% chance of massive gains over 5% chance of a bad front page. It's like, that's what's good about business, is that they're looking at numbers rather than wishes and fears.
Yeah.
And so I assume people watching this podcast know, but if you don't know, and if you've got a high risk, high return business, Prospera is much more welcoming than other places. And Niklas can tell you more about that. And I'm sure you'll tell them we don't want to go and have a giant explosion here, but you're willing to tolerate a lot of risk that other governments will just say, like, no.
Yeah. And this goes to your point of sort of markets finding what sounds bad and but is good, right? So as an entrepreneur, when you're in a business, the best ones, they constantly think, what's an unmet need, something that's not there yet, but that people actually want.
Yep.
And do you think that makes it so beautiful in a way, and also somewhat of a like symphony almost in a mathematical sense, is there's these different layers of reward and risk, right? So you do like a very small improvement in like the sign up process to a website that makes things a little bit better, but like for 1 billion people, and you can make a business out of that. And then these other things that make a really big difference, like creating a whole new jurisdiction with different laws, where you have to take a very high risk to get there, but then you also have like a very high reward. And for each of these different layers, there's funding mechanisms, right? There's a whole financial industry that says like venture capital, okay, we bet on the high risk, high reward stuff, and other sort of more traditional business or private equity or debt financing to focus on the lower risk stuff. It's such an enormous like amount of civilizational achievement to have a process that so systematically makes the life better for people.
Right. The way you're describing it, a business are looking around for unmet needs. My view is the greatest unmet need is for immortality. Like, I don't want to die, Niklas. Do you want to die?
Nope. That's why I'm doing what I'm doing.
Now, have you seen public opinion data on life extension?
Yes.
It's horrifying. Something like 80% of people just say, no, we shouldn't go and give people more healthy life.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And like the mentality of it is just so Neanderthal of like, nature has allotted us this certain amount of life, and it is hubris to try to get more. And yet people if you were saying, so what do we need? Well, we need government regulation. Why? If people are so worried about being hubristic, then there won't be demand, right? It's like, no. We know there's a bunch of arrogant, sleazy people, maybe hundreds of millions, that would buy this evil product. And furthermore, once those people are buying it, probably everyone will want it. And we have to stop it before we get there. And this is the mindset of the masses who call business evil. It's like, the businesses are evil, you people are evil. What the hell is wrong with you? You want me and all my friends to die based upon some stupid idea that this is what nature intended? Like, did nature, should we have tried to avoid reducing infant mortality because nature intended for half of infants to die? Like, what the hell is wrong with you? But this is, again, the kind of thing where I would totally trust business to pursue these opportunities anywhere on earth. And so, I know Prospera, one of the things you're looking for is trying to come up with viable life extension technologies. When I was there, I was not actually sold enough to want to buy any of them. But, I pray that you do get someone with a demonstrable, massive, life-extending product, because I will be on the plane tomorrow.
Good. Yeah, that's the ultimate goal of my business of Infinita. And that's also something to the point that I always say at the longevity conferences, right? People have this, they think that, all right, all the opinion surveys are against us and we need to convince people that it's actually good for them. It's like, no, the way of a business is you don't have to argue, right? You just build, you give them something that they want. Right. And then through revealed preferences, you do find out they do actually want it.
Yeah, like what most people would have said about email when I was a kid is, why do I need this email? I've got the post office. That would have been like a normal reaction to people. And if you said, no, this is going to be faster and it's going to lead to other things and you'll be e-commerce, like, And instead, what you do is you just find the people that are open-minded to getting something better, and you lead by example. And like so much of this is like, once people actually have some firsthand experience with the product, it's like, oh yeah, all these complaints were stupid and I don't care. And I actually don't even remember that I ever had them. Like, I mean, like my dad is 87 and like definitely a closed-minded person. And yet he runs a very successful internet business now. But to try selling him on the future directly through arguments in the 1980s, like you might as well just hit your head against a wall. But to just to show him the product and then let him see his friends are using it. And that's the kind of thing that actually leads to a massive transformation of human behavior. And it is business that does it. By the way, did you know there was actually a move by the U.S. Post Office to get a monopoly over email in America in the early days?
No, I didn't know that.
So I don't know how far they got, but I was just like,
Yeah, amazing. And it also goes to your point about the unobstructive way in which business does it, right? It doesn't, want to argue and convince you, it just has an offer out there. And then, your friends use it, they tell you more about it, the information kind of percolates, and at some point you're like, okay, I'm going to try this now, right?
Which again is the kind of thing that a lot of people hate about business. Like there should have been a dialogue. We should have had a national conversation about what we as a society want. I have this slogan. So the line from, I think, The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, saying, badges, we don't need no stinking badges. So anyway, it's like, conversation, we don't need no stinking conversation. Like, you want a conversation because it's going to end with, we don't get immortality. Because people are just too pig-headed on this stuff. No, I don't want a conversation. And same thing, like, if we'd had a conversation about Uber before it existed, would we have gotten Uber?
Nope.
Uber just went and tried a high-risk strategy and proved it by example. And here's the thing is, I think a lot of people use Uber now who would have been against it. They don't even remember that they would have been against it. It's just because their opinion was not even that deep. It was just like a superficial hate, which could be wiped out by one car ride.
Yeah. And the fascinating thing is, in business, there's a methodology to address that. Almost anyone who is succeeding will learn about what's called the technology adoption life cycle, right? So in the beginning, you have like the innovators or early adopters, which have a disproportionate high value that they get out of your product, even if it's just for ideological reasons, right? So in Prosper, getting the people that are really bought into the idea and want to see this succeed, right? Even though it doesn't have yet a lot of the infrastructure or whatever. And then you add more of the infrastructure and you kind of make it more accessible to the mainstream and what people will require. Here's like all the family-friendly schools, clinic, whatever, right? So almost any business, any new technology that succeeds is working that way, which is again fascinating by how much it achieves.
By the way, so do you realize that for the first few years, email did not have backspace?
No.
I remember the years where if you're typing an email and you hit the backspace button, instead of it actually deleting a character, would add like a $H or like a $T. And now I talked to the actual CS people. Like, oh, well, all you have to do is reprogram your keyboard to do this and that, and then it won't happen anymore. It's like, why is that not the standard thing? Why do you have to learn how to do it? And remember, in those days, there's no Google, so you'd have to find a manual somewhere to find out how do I go and make backspace work. And it took actually a few years to get that going. And the early adopters are people that are such insiders, they know how to solve the problem or they just don't care. Like I remember sending emails with like $H, oh yeah, this isn't working, and no way of deleting it. And then then they realized, oh yeah, like especially Brian's parents aren't going to want to have this. We need to have the backspace work. and they start fixing like really basic things. And then finally we have all this functionality, and normal people like the products, but just the way that the adoption happens, like the original product kind of sucks. And you do need kind of an ideology to really get people excited, and there's people like it, but think about the potential, right? By the way, so now like I am the age my parents were when I started using email. And I do have younger friends who make fun of me for how slow I am to adopt some technologies. And I'll say, well, look, I'm sure you're having a great time. It's fine, but I have experience with what works for me, and I'm going to wait for it to get worked out more. And that's my role in the system now. And you can play your role, and it's all fine. I'm certainly not getting mad at you for doing this free work of trying out the new stuff before it's ready for me. Thank you, actually.
Yeah. Let's talk a bit about the ways in which this kind of progress often gets obstructed. So maybe you can talk about how antitrust kills people.
Yes. Yeah. So we got a chapter called Antitrust Kills. So let me take you back in time to the Microsoft antitrust case. All right. So under Clinton, they were I'm sure it was Justice Department or Federal Trade Commission. Anyway, the federal government was suing Microsoft for antitrust violations. And one of their remedies was they had to delete the Internet Explorer icon on the app. So basically, when you first open up Windows, as built, Internet Explorer would be right there. And then if you wanted a competing browser, you'd have to download it. And the government said that's not fair. And so there should be no browser that is there. And you should have to go and find out how to go and put the Internet Explorer icon there so that everybody's competing on even footing. This is the intellectual level of the government is we want to go and damage the product so that competitors can go and compete on an even level. Right. So anyway, this is what happened. And by the way, the story of this lawsuit almost defies belief, because you know what incident led the government to explicitly decide to settle the Microsoft case?
Who was it?
9/11. 9/11. So after 9/11, President Bush said, look, in this time of crisis, America needs to come together, and we need to put this lingering conflict with Microsoft behind us. And so they cut a deal with Microsoft, and the thing went away over a terrorist attack, which just gives you an idea of the intellectual seriousness of the whole thing in the first place. It's totally symbolic and ridiculous. But anyway, but the point of this essay is how much did that antitrust case reduce Bill Gates' wealth? And you can like estimates vary, but it's very plausible that in the end it cost him hundreds of billions of dollars. And then combine this with Bill Gates's stated fact and demonstrable actions to give away virtually all of his money. And it's like, and where does he give his money? Does he give it to Harvard? No. So he's giving money for actually desperately poor people. So I said, why don't we just go and do a little calculation of how much money that this case cost Bill Gates, and then how much money Bill Gates is giving to the global poor, and what's the cost of saving a life. And I just come up with an estimate of how many people died because of this stupid antitrust case. And it's a pretty big number. Right. And yes, I know a lot of people say, well, most billionaires don't give away so much money, and how are they supposed to know he was going to be so generous and everything else? It's like, look, the point still stands. Right. The government went and lashed out at a really rich, successful guy based upon pretty much nothing, and destroyed a lot of his wealth. And yeah, like Bill Gates still is doing perfectly fine. He's not suffering, but the people that would have benefited from that lost out. And it's like, and just to think about, like, how should we evaluate the people that did this to him and did this to the world? These are terrible people. People who are just highly negligent, like people who, like, I think really the best story, like they see success and they find fault. And it's true, like anyone who is that successful, they're just doing a lot of stuff, so it's not going to be hard to find fault. Right. This generalizes to some other areas, like my daughter, whenever there's a celebrity scandal for someone that she likes, she often says, I can't listen to Melanie Martinez anymore because of what she did. And I'm like, well, you don't really know that she did anything. All that you know is that some people accused her. And if someone accuses a random person of something bad, at least it's like, well, that would be pretty weird if they just made it up. But if you're a celebrity, it's not weird at all because hundreds of millions of people know you. So if even one person in a million that knows about you wants to make up a terrible story about you, there will be an endless string of horrible things said about you. And that's just the deliberate concoction of lies against celebrities. And then just what about, look, you do business with tens of thousands of people, and there's just going to be misunderstandings and cases where people debate about was it right or not. And just the fact that you've done a lot of stuff means that there's just going to be an endless stream of debatably, arguably bad things you've done, which is to be expected for anyone who accomplishes a lot. And then should we just make all highly accomplished people subject to this constant harassment? And my story for my daughter is no, like, I think you should keep listening to Melanie Martinez. I like her. It's good music. And like, or maybe the stories are true, but like it's not at all clear that they're true. And there's a very strong story that she could easily be totally innocent. And then what are you doing? You're giving up your favorite musician over made up stuff or just over misunderstandings. So yeah, and that's what the way you can see Bill Gates or like any really successful entrepreneur, like it would be like, think about like who is the most successful, richest person that nobody says anything bad about. It's pretty hard. Like it sort of comes down to if nobody knows you're alive somehow, then maybe no one says anything bad about you. A fun fact: vast majority of billionaires don't have a Wikipedia article. And they like it that way.
Yeah, especially in Germany, there's a tradition that billionaires are very secretive and they like stay or live in like very small towns and very unassuming buildings to protect themselves from the.
So then, what's the point of being that rich if you can't build the new Schloss Neuschwanstein? I know, like if I was a German billionaire, like you better believe I'd be building Super Neuschwanstein for myself and just say, look, this is the land of castles, okay? So I'm gonna get one.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it depends preferences, right? So some billionaires, they're fine with all the backlash they would get, and others they're like, okay, it's just not worth it.
Clearly feel like publicity is bad for them and likely to just, and I think what they're really thinking is, look, the good stuff I'll get through word of mouth. Like I go to a party and women are whispering, oh, that guy's a billionaire. And the bad stuff of being in the media, like that's probably just going to hurt your business and hurt you.
Yeah. There was one more chapter that where the arguments I hadn't heard before that I found really interesting, right? So there's this argument out that in the absence of government, only the rich could afford the good, like housing, education, or healthcare, whatever. So how do these free governments actually create that illusion in the first place?
Do what elements?
How do free government service create that illusion or that actual situation in the first place, right? Because go for it.
Great point. So this goes back to a long-running argument I have with Alex Tabarrok, who's a big believer in what's called Baumol's cost disease. And his story is, look, you can't blame government for rising healthcare costs or education costs because private and government costs are going up in the same way. And there really isn't much of a market for low-cost private goods. So it's not government. Right. And I start with this reply of saying, all right, let's just slow down a bit here before we decide this. I say, look, so if government is giving away, say, grade C education for free of charge, suppose you're a private business and you want to sell grade C education. How will you do it? If the government gives it away for free, paid for by taxes, how could any business imagine they're going to get any customers offering the same product for a price that will cover cost? And I'd say, there pretty much is no way of doing it. Basically, your only hope would be it's going to be still grade C, but there's going to be some tweak in the product, like we'll have religious education, which is illegal for the government to do. Right. But pretty much there's going to be anytime government gives away a product of a given quality level, it destroys the entire market for that quality level and all lower quality levels. So it's no surprise that when government is giving things away for free, and this is actually one of government's favorite things to do. Governments love to play Santa Claus and just give stuff away for free. It really is the most extreme kind of predatory pricing in the world because it's predatory pricing funded by an endless stream of taxes. So they never have to worry they're going to run out of money. right? So that's the first thing that I'll tell Alex is you are missing the point that given what government is doing, it would be very surprising if any private industry would offer the low cost thing or the low quality thing to compete with government because the government stuff is free. So then how can you go and get any students in your private school? You must offer a higher quality than the government offers. And crucially, the improvement in quality has to be worth the total price of the product, which is an extreme result, right? It's like, so you wouldn't want to offer C plus because there's only a tiny improvement in quality, and yet you would have to cover the cost of all your teachers, all your buildings, all the energy costs, everything else. All that stuff would have been paid for by people who are only getting something a little bit better. So really, once government is giving something away for free, it means that not only should you expect that it will be a disappearance of equal quality products, but also there'll be very little in the area in a neighborhood of that product, even of higher quality. And so really the only thing you're likely to see is products that are much higher quality than what government is offering. And those, yes, will tend to have very high prices, leading to the illusion that if government doesn't give it to you, then everyone's going to have to pay $50,000 a year for private school. And that is just not how it goes. Right? And then similarly, like, if you're in a world where government is going and throwing a lot of money at public education and they actually raise the quality, then in order to compete, private schools have to keep raising quality too. Right? So like when you look at public schools, like from an entrepreneur's point of view, there are so many obvious ways to save money. Like, let's get rid of college educated gym teachers. Why do you need a college degree to teach gym? Let's just cut costs and let's just hire a high school dropout who likes sports and is good with kids. But if public schools don't do that, and why would they? They're getting all this money from taxpayers, and saving money on our children's education from our public schools doesn't sound very good. If public schools are hiring these overqualified people to teach gym, how can private schools expect to get any customers if they just go and try to cut costs? They've got to go in for quality. And it's like, no, we're not just going to go and get college graduates. We're going to go and get people with a master's degree in exercise physiology. And that's how we're going to go and compete to actually get students in our school. So there's more to it, but I think this is probably the thing of most importance that Alex is just totally wrong about. And especially again, I love Alex. He's my brother. He's a very smart guy, but his willingness to bless the status quo and say government isn't wasting trillions of dollars on this stuff is just totally wrong.
Well, I felt in my podcast episode with him about 2 years ago, he was not too insistent on defending that argument. I kind of criticized his formal argument.
He's got like a 70-page co-authored paper on it. So
yeah, but it was after the paper, about like a year after. And I felt he's kind of like, it seemed to me like he was not defending it very strongly anymore.
I'm pretty sure that was more of he didn't want to argue than that he changed his mind. But
okay.
if you want, I'm happy to go and do a 3-way conversation where
could be a fun debate. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I go and it's like, Alex, for the love of God, confess your error before God and man.
Good. Yeah. Amazing. Bryan, we're nearing the end of our time. Is there anything else that you want to highlight from the book, or like one of your favorite chapters or arguments?
I'm trying to remember if this made it into the book, but let's talk a little bit more about the psychology of entrepreneurship. So during COVID, I actually got to spend months hanging out with Steve Kuhn, who is the founder of Major League Pickleball and many other businesses. And I actually got to have him drive me around in his car while he's doing business over his speakerphone, and I'm just sort of sitting there listening in. But also, he shared a lot of his business ideas with me, and it was really interesting getting feedback. Once he said, "Hey, Bryan, I want you to fly to Austin and get all your friends from University of Texas, and let's bring them all to my house. I got an idea. I want to get feedback." So, very creative and curious guy. And from hanging out with him, I got this lesson about the difference between a very successful entrepreneur and normal people that have business ideas. And it's this: normal people with business ideas, I hear their ideas and my reaction is just like, that is the stupidest idea I've ever heard. Don't waste a penny of money on it. It's ridiculous. It is doomed to fail. And I'll just say, like, I've never been wrong about that. So whenever a person just tells me their regular dumb business idea, I instantly see that it's dumb, and I've never been proven wrong. On the other hand, when Steve would tell me his ideas, I'd listen and I would just go like, I don't know, maybe. And that was the strongest positive reaction I ever had to any of his business ideas. And yet that gap between definite total stupidity and I don't know, maybe, is the difference between being a fabulously rich possible billionaire and losing your life savings. Of course, combined with you have a lot of ideas. So he has a lot of these ideas, and he's good at selecting which ones are going to be successful and which ones aren't, which ones, even if they fail, there's a backup plan that's really great. So he put a lot of money into buying up a lot of land about 40 minutes west of Austin to make a theme park called Dreamland. After about 4 years, he shut it down. But in the process, he had bought up like 100 acres of land, which had multiplied in value like tenfold. So I think he still made out like a bandit, even though the specific business idea, he decided it wasn't the best one anymore. But so that is what's going on with entrepreneurs. And people look down on them or just say, oh, they're just going and exploiting others. It's like you don't know what the hell you're talking about. Like most people would have no ability to run even the most basic business. They would just screw it up in 100 different ways. Most people aren't fit to run an apple cart, right? And like, that's okay. A lot of what's nice about markets is that if you don't feel like you really know enough to run a business, you just work for somebody else and they give you some orders and they tell you what to do and you get a nice paycheck and you live a nice life and you focus on what matters to you rather than running a business. And again, one of the really tragic things about government regulation, which I think you'll be able to see in Honduras very well, is that when there's regulation against big businesses, when there's just an informal understanding, if your business gets big, the government will target you for shakedowns and bribery, then you just don't have very much business. And then regular people are stuck in self-employment. They're stuck doing things like selling hats on the beach. Let's see. So I don't think there were anyone trying to sell me a hat in Honduras, but you see a lot of this kind of self-employment, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yes, and it's really tragic because in a functional economy, they wouldn't be going and walking on the beach all day to go and sell 3 hats. They would be working in a corporation, well run, taking advantage of economies of scale by someone who has better ideas about how to go and allocate their time, someone who gives them insurance against risk, so if there's a bad day, they don't go home hungry. And yet governments go and treat businesses like the enemy. And the perception in the United States, I assume it's the same in Germany, is that countries like Honduras are dominated by evil multinational corporations. And you get there and it's like, there aren't any multinational corporations here. Like, what's the biggest multinational with any notable presence in Honduras or like on your island? So
no, it's like the banks, but they're mostly like regional or from Honduras.
Yeah, so
they're
like,
big.
in terms of like, what's the biggest multinational business that even has an office on your island?
Can't think of any.
Yeah. So like, that's the reality of the third world. It's not that they're exploited by multinational businesses. It's that multinational businesses are too scared to open up shop there.
Yeah, because of the Foreign Corrupt Practices Act.
Yes.
Right. So you have an extremely high burden of proof that nobody in your value chain in that country is like committing corruption, which sounds good. These things that sound good, but in practice, that's super hard in a country like Honduras or in African countries, right? So the risk of you from like hiring people there is just so high, it doesn't meet the threshold.
Well, even before that Foreign Corrupt Practices Act, there was very little first world investment in the third world. And especially, distinguishing between like middle income and low income. Most first world investment is middle income, not low income. Low income is, rather than being exploited by the first world, is basically just living off on another planet for most purposes.
Yeah, until you have like a country like a Singapore or Taiwan or Dubai that is like becoming very business friendly and saying, we want all you foreign corporations.
Right, or probably did that 60 years ago, and now that we see the fruit of it. Right, and so like, have you spent much time in Emirates?
I was just there briefly, yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, I got to do 2 trips in the last year, so like I'm going full Emirati, man. Like, what an amazing country! It's so awesome. I just love what they've done here. And then just to be honest and say, this would never happen under democracy. There's no freaking way.
Yeah.
right? And if they had an election, probably the first one would be okay, but after like 3 or 4 elections, the Islamists would win and then destroy the whole country.
Yeah. Great. Bryan, a lot of fun to have you on, as always, talking about the entrepreneurship and business and how much of a force for good it is in the world. One thing that I actually was thinking of adding in the end is that entrepreneurs are often also like scientists, right? So they have these ideas and then they need to test them out in the world, right? And you only get good data if you actually put something out, a product, and then kind of learn from the market. Right, so that makes it, I think, just very beautiful and like a symphony. Makes it philosophy almost, like that's and scientific in how you conduct yourself in the world, and like real, right? Because the result is not.
It is only the most sophisticated businesses that are really doing true experiments. I mean, this is another thing where you'll take it like when
technology startups do that, right? So that's like the methodology we all learn, like from the beginning through Y Combinator and Paul Graham and all of that.
But it is striking when you go and look at small businesses, or let's back up. So when I'm teaching like present value calculations undergraduates, sometimes there'll be one raise his hand and says, "Do businesses really do this?" And I say, like, well-run businesses do. I don't think that the Afghan restaurant down the street has a spreadsheet out and they're doing it. And there's plenty of reality TV business shows where first question is like, what is the cost of this shrimp dish? I'm like, oh no. So, but that's not such a well-run business. And just realizing, look, managerial talent is scarce and unsophisticated businesses are usually run by unsophisticated people who are not running it in this experimental way. But yes, then like the hardest core ones are much more likely to be run this way. And again, like the dream would really be they could all get run that way. Again, the problem is scarcity of managerial talent, which by the way is like after spending a lot more time in Latin America, I really came away with this is their main problem actually. Like maybe even worse than all the government regulation. Again, like I say, like ultimately the worst thing is first world immigration restrictions because it keeps them stuck there. But I remember like when I was going through the Yucatan Peninsula, often I'd go and see like a rural restaurant catering to tourists, and I would just instantly see as an American tourist, here's 5 things you could do to fix this business to do better. Things like spell check your sign. Americans are nervous to eat a restaurant where the dishes are misspelled, right? So get the sign spell checked, things like that. And, it's easy to say, oh, you don't know their business, but it's like, look, I'm their customer. I'm their potential customer. I know what's bothering. This would be easy to fix. It's like, well, Bryan, if you're so smart, why don't you go and open up a restaurant in the middle of the Yucatan? And it's like, yeah, because I have way better things that I could do and make way more money doing it. And if there was a Mexican who knew how to run a business in this way, they wouldn't be there. And so the people running the businesses are people that just aren't that good at doing it. And if there could be some way of getting the entrepreneurial talent to go and take over and reform these businesses and get them working at a first world level, that would be such an improvement for them. But again, the problem is someone that was good enough to go and make that business work would probably want to go to one of the main cities or just get out of Mexico entirely. And I suspect that you would see the same kind of thing in Honduras too. Am I right?
Yeah, for sure. And I think you also spoke about that, how much of a positive impact foreign corporations have as a result, yes. Right? Because so it raises the level of everyone. So after you've worked for like Marriott Hotel or something like that, it's like some of these things you've been taught, right? And you can then like apply with a bit of experience.
Right. And again, you might think that you just go on the internet and read about it, but normal people don't learn by reading. They learn by doing.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Fantastic. Bryan, your book, Pro Market and Pro Business, Essays on Laissez-Faire, available on Amazon. And anything else that you want to draw listeners' attention to, where can they find you or engage with your work?
Right. So my Substack is just called Bet On It, and that should be easy to get. All my stuff is on bcaplan.com. And as Niklas mentioned, every summer I have a giant party where I invite every human I know recursively. So that includes every human they know and so on. You might think that would be crazy, but it works fine. And we get like 100 people show up and we have a great party. Niklas has come all the way from Honduras for it. Hope he comes again. Right. So Niklas knows how to party. So I had a fantastic time in Honduras. when my plane got canceled, I've got to say, I was kind of like, oh yeah, this is good.
Yeah, you're playing. And then we spent some time, a couple of days hanging out in the dome and playing games,
Yeah,
singing more karaoke.
we just had a absolute blast.
Yeah,
So
yeah, yeah.
Prospera, like it's like so much going on there, so exciting. I totally want to go back. It is a bit hard to squeeze it in because I got 4 kids, but my favorite thing to do is just bring my kids with me. So I hope
Great.
that can happen.
Always welcome at any point. Really looking forward to the next CaplaCon and playing games with you again. Thanks so much, Bryan, for coming on the show.
All right. Thanks a lot, buddy. Bye-bye.